Right then guys, this is just a football fan here, and it's a controversial one. I'm doing a video on the illustrious VAR. This is something that got brought into football, into Premier League this season, and it's had its ups and downs. It's had a lot of controversy, it's had its hand in a lot of matches, and a lot of fans aren't too keen on it, to be honest. It kind of had its proper warm-up in the World Cup, and it was used quite well, and definitely better than it's been utilised in the Premier League this season. And I've been looking at a couple of examples. If you go onto the site called Give Me Sport, it has the 10 most controversial decisions of the season due to VAR, and I've gone through all of them. I'm going to discuss a little bit about each and every single one of them, as well as the underlying issues and everything to do with VAR, really. Let's first go through this site then, shall we? First off, it says, at number 10, Socrates' goal that was disallowed against Palace. This was one that, as mentioned before, was very controversial. It was one where there was a foul in the build-up, which was a soft foul, but it was a foul. And it meant that they pulled it back. Socrates' goal got disallowed, even though he had nothing to do with the way the ball fell to him. He struck it well, but there was a foul in the build-up. It may be soft, but it was a foul. So that's why that one was chalked off. Man United versus Liverpool. A foul on Divock Origi is what it says here. This was the 1-1 at the start. It wouldn't say the start of the season, it would be like week 10 of the Premier League. And Lindelof did catch him, which he went down. The ball got played Dan James, he burst on the wing, played in Marcus Rashford, and it went 1-0. Was there contact? Yes. Was there enough for the way he went down? No. Was there enough that if he got clipped that he should go down? No, but he's going to. He's a footballer, that's what they do, they try and exaggerate. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If he gets clipped on the foot, or just not brushed his kneecap, and he goes down like he's been shot, then he might have got the decision given to him. It's the way he went down, the way that he conducted himself is the reason why it wasn't given. And yes, you may go, oh, typical Man United fan talking about VAR and penalty, Chester United and all that nonsense. But who cares? It wasn't a foul. If it was, I would have been annoyed, but I've seen him given because that's how soft the game has gotten, hence the reason why Socrates' goal got disallowed. But I'd say there was less contact on Origi and he went down more dramatically than the first one. Trent's handball versus Man City. This is one that VAR got wrong. He definitely handled it. Whether he meant to handle it, his arm was out. He didn't mean to handle it, but it was in an unnatural position. It stopped the flight of the ball, and Liverpool went up the other end and scored. It shouldn't have been 1-0 at that point, and the thing is, it was a very good strike from Fabinho. It was a very good strike from Fabinho. Take nothing away from the lad. It was a very good strike, and it would have been disappointing for that goal to be disallowed, but it should have been. It was a handball. It should have been a penalty to Man City, which, if they'd won that game, would have put them 2 points behind Liverpool at that point, instead of the 8 that it was in the end. And yeah, I was going to say I can see why it wasn't given, but in this day and age with the handball rules, it should have been given. Liverpool disallowed goal versus Manchester United. Again, Liverpool Man United. Again, Manchester United on the positive side of VAR. Again, it was soft. I'm not going to deny it. It was soft. But goalkeepers in the game are protected. So, the second there was contact, the second Van Dijk jumped for the ball, he's a big lad. He didn't get the ball. He got De Gea. De Gea got the ball. He got De Gea afterwards at the same time, or he got De Gea and the ball at pretty much the same time. But De Gea may not have had full control of the ball, but he had both hands on the ball. and because of Van Dijk jumping into him meant that he dropped the ball. If Van Dijk doesn't jump into him, he doesn't drop it. It's as simple as that. Good finish from Firmino again. A lot of Liverpool fans weren't happy that it was disallowed. It was a good finish. It was disappointing for Firmino not to score, especially since he hasn't scored at Anfield for a while and didn't score for 7 or 8 months even after that. But it was a foul. De La Fay's penalty versus Tottenham. Just gonna fly over that one. Again, there was contact. It probably wasn't enough to warrant a penalty, but he was going off the pitch. He was going away from goal. It was soft. He was looking for it, but I've seen him given, so maybe VAR got that one wrong. Brighton's penalty versus Everton. He's still on his toe. He's still on his foot. And as I mentioned before, football's become soft. People go down on the little contact. He shouldn't have gone down the way he did. But the fact there was contact, the fact that him, I hate to say it, because it just seems wrong, but him standing on his foot does impede his movement, and he goes down. And a lot of the time you're going to see him given. VAR shouldn't. I think it's one of those things where if the referee gives it, it shouldn't overturn it. But I wouldn't say it was a big enough. It was clear and obvious that meant that he had to overturn it from it not being a penalty to a penalty. Firmino's offside versus Aston Villa. This was the first incident we've seen this season, that we had seen this season, of a very, very fractional armpit offside. This is one of the very trivial things to do with VAR, because it's not clear and obvious. When you're looking at millimetres, when you're looking at different camera angles, when you're looking at frame by frame, when you're looking at all of this to determine whether it's on or offside, it isn't clear and obvious, and that isn't what VAR is used for. That's not what it's created for. If it's not obvious, then it shouldn't be overturned. So it's one of those things where the on-field assistant referee raised his flag for offside. It was offside, so at that point you'd say, job well done, linesman, you've got it right. That would count as an offside. But if he didn't raise his flag, if we're looking at it in hindsight, if he didn't raise his flag and VAR went to it and it was that close, I'd say it should be given. The fact the assistant referee flagged it for offside and it was offside, fair play, it's offside. Gabriel Jesus disallowed goal versus Tottenham. This was another incident of there being a handball in the build-up, and there was touch of the hand, and after touch of the hand it fell to Jesus, who scored. And it's one of those ones where you look at it and you're like, really, is that what the game's come to? That's not VAR's fault. I'm going to go over it in a second, but that wasn't VAR's fault. Neto, another one offside by a toe. If it's offside, it's offside. Again, McGoldrick, this is the number one most controversial. His offside when John Lundstrom was offside in the build-up. So from that list, there was a couple of fouls, there was a couple of offsides, there was a few different things there. VAR gets a bad rap and it's very misconstrued. I'm not going to say that I'm a massive advocate for VAR. I'm not going to say that VAR is the greatest thing in the world. I'm not going to say any of that. But VAR has to stay. VAR, has it been good this season? No, not really. Was it a good first season again? No, not really. But should it stay? Yeah, it should. It's one of those things. VAR gets a bad rap for the handballs, the offsides, the fouls. The fouls that you can look at. VAR, literally, there's nothing wrong with VAR. VAR is something that you can look at and it's a broad thing. VAR is anything where a decision is looked at and changed or kept. Whether it's a handball, whether it's an offside, whether it's a foul, whether it's a red card, anything like that is put down as VAR. If it's a handball in the build-up and VAR says it's a handball and the goal's not given, that's VAR doing its job. That isn't VAR's fault. That's the handball rule. if there's a player offside and VAR gives it as offside and it's right and gets disallowed. That's not VAR. That is I would say the offside rules, but the offside wasn't brought in to make sure people's big toes weren't offside. VAR's brought in to stop goal hanging. But when you look at people being offside by inches or millimetres, that isn't VAR's fault. That is the use of VAR and the referee that was using it. That's not on VAR. If VAR gets the decision right, you may not like it. It may not be in the rules of the game, but it got it right. It's not VAR's fault. It's the application of VAR that is getting it wrong. The referees have to be looked at. Again, the fouls. All VAR does for fouls is it gives you another angle. VAR is not at fault for fouls. VAR should not be looked at and blamed for fouls. VAR is there to give. It's a video assistant referee. It is there as an assistant to the referee, or it's a second referee that can assist the first referee, the on-pitch referee, by using different video camera angles. It's not there to overrule his decisions. It's there to guide him and help him, which is why the monitor should be used more often. That is when I can say they've got it wrong as well. It's not there as a tool to get the decision right by itself. It is used as a tool to allow other referees, other qualified referees, other referees that will referee matches in the future, to look at different angles and to say to that referee, you might not look at that, or I'm sorry you got that one wrong. It's not there to get the decision right by itself. It's there to give every single opportunity it can for the decision to be made correct. VAR is not a fault for fouls that shouldn't be fouls, for handballs, for offsides, anything like that. The thing that you can fault VAR for is, I would say, in the offsides when the lines aren't straight, or you look at it and it looks wrong, or you look at it. One thing with VAR and offsides is they go down to the millimetre. I'm talking this fraction of a millimetre to make sure it's the exact right decision in terms of the line, where it is, how straight it is. But it doesn't go down to the frame of when the ball leaves the foot. And do you class the ball leaving the foot as the second the foot makes impact with the foot, or the second that the ball and the foot no longer in contact? Because looking at margins like that could be the difference between a toe being on and a toe off. If you're going to look at the fractions, like the really, really small margins for offsides, you have to look at it in both senses. And that's one of the issues. They're not doing that. And they need to use the monitor more often, because instead of, a lot of times what you'll find is they'll go look over different angles for a penalty or a foul or a handball, and they'll take 3-4 minutes. Instead, what they can do is they can go, this is this angle, this is this angle, this is this angle. Send those over to the referee, go to look at the monitor, he'll have a quick look, maybe a minute at most. And he knows his refereeing style. He knows the free kicks he's been given that game. He knows what fouls he knows why he's given cards. So to keep the consistency up there, he needs to go look at the monitor and say, if I saw that angle, I'd give it, or if I saw that angle, I wouldn't. The monitor is such an important thing that isn't being used, and that is one of the main issues of VAR. Again, like I said, VAR, it's not as bad as people make it out to be. It's just the application of it is completely wrong, which is why next season I want to see offsides not be as trivial. I want to see it, if you have to spend 3 minutes to draw a line and you have to spend so much time trying to find a way to make them be offside, then it shouldn't be offside. If it's too close to call from, literally, if you got it's like a snippet just before the ball was played, if you could see the line, if both players are somewhat level, say for example someone's arm is slightly more further forwards than the other one, or their shoe size is different, so their toe is further forwards. That isn't offside. That isn't an advantage. That is just their body shape different. And you're going to find it with defenders anyway. Defenders do play side on quite frequently, but when you're centre backs, you like to stand square on, block runners. So already, when you're standing flat like this, like a Cristiano Ronaldo stance with a free kick, when you're stood in a straight line, compared to an attacker who is at that point making a run, his body is about 3-4 times the width because of the fact that he's got his arms ready to run, he's in motion. His body is bigger at that point. There is more of him that could be ruled as offside, which his body stance shouldn't be a reason that he's offside, because otherwise people just coach their players to run like this, so they're never offside. It just doesn't work that way. It's not a clear advantage, so it shouldn't be given as such. You should look at it and go, is he clearly offside? Yes. He's a whole yard offside. Is his toe in line with... is the back of his foot in line with his toe? Yes, then that's not really an advantage. It needs to be looked at as it was written. Is it clear and obvious? No. Then don't give it. Is it trivial? Yes. Then go with what the referee said. Is it close? Yes. Then send him some footage to look at on the screen, and he knows what he's talking about. He'll look at it and he'll go, my decision's made. You can't look at VAR as it's going to get it right every time, because it's not. End of the day, VAR is still human error. With fouls, it's still a referee looking at it saying if it's a foul or not. With offsides, it's the referee's interpretation of the rules whether it's offside. With handballs, it's the referee's interpretation of what a handball is. Some people can say this is a handball, some people say this is a handball. Some people say this isn't, some people say this isn't. So it's all interpretations and still human error. VAR has done a lot for the game. It's made a lot of decisions correctly, and it's made a couple wrong. I'd say it's probably got 95% of its decisions right this season. And that leads me on to my final point of people say it ruins enjoyments of the game. You don't know whether to celebrate your goals anymore because you don't know if VAR is going to go back and it's going to disallow it. We've had decisions such as ones I've read out earlier, where Socrates thought he'd scored a winner for Arsenal, scored a brace in a game, and it got disallowed. We had Tyrone Mings against Manchester United for Villa. When he scored his goal, he thought VAR was going to allow it, so he didn't celebrate. I think that was his first goal in Premier League football, and he didn't celebrate because he didn't think it was going to count. We have people mocking VAR when they scored a goal and they're like, go to the VAR to see if it counts or not. And to that, I'd agree with them. And VAR has taken away some goals this season. It has taken away some enjoyment, and it has slowed down the game. But at the same time, it's also made decisions correctly that could be a difference. Say, for example, this season, I don't know. Say, for example, Villa and their goal that the Sheffield United goal that didn't count. Again, was VAR should have looked at that and said, I know this isn't my jurisdiction, I know this is blind technology, but it's wrong. That should be a goal. Something like that could have been the difference, because if that wasn't 0-0, Villa could have gone down. That was the difference between Watford and Bournemouth survival that day. That was a point gained because of VAR for Aston Villa. And when you look at it that way, that has ruined some celebrations. But at the same time, that has meant the club has stayed up, and that is given them hope. It's given them celebration. And false, because it shouldn't have counted. But when it comes to VAR, there are positives and there are negatives. I have had times where I've celebrated goals and VAR shot off. I've had times where I've been gutted that we've conceded and VAR shot off and I've celebrated. VAR does ruin enjoyment when it comes to your team scoring goals, but it can bring excitement when it comes to taking goals away from other teams against you. And VAR gives as good as it takes. So it depends on how you want to look at it, really. VAR, can it be improved? Of course it can. Is it here to stay? I expect it to be. Yeah, I think it's here to stay. And to be honest, has VAR been good this season? Like I said at the start, no, it really hasn't. But there's much to improve on, and it will. Goal technology wasn't perfect, and it pretty much is now, apart from, like I mentioned earlier, with the Villa, Sheffield United. But it's got a way to go. But if it does it, it's... Hopefully they do something different next season. Hopefully things change, and hopefully things get better. I wouldn't count on it. It's definitely VAR is a work in progress. It's something that will be worked on constantly. It's something that we're not going to change in 2 or 3 years, but maybe in 5 it'll be perfect. And at the end of the day, football is a business, and like I mentioned earlier with the Villa thing, imagine the difference between a handball not being given against your club when it should have counted, or a team scored a goal against you that should have been offside, and it meant that you went down. That one wrong decision from a referee or a linesman that could have been changed by VAR would have cost your company a lot of money. And like I said before, end of the day, football is a business these days. It's not a sport. In the professional level, it's a business. And decisions that VAR can change are decisions that can ruin a club. They're things that can change a club's history. So you have to make sure that every decision is correct. I know that football has been played without it for so long. I know that the lower leagues don't have it because they haven't got the money for it. And that is one thing that is wrong. There needs to be consistency at every single level. But there is a professional referees at grassroots level. There isn't all these exceptionally gifted, just different officials at different levels, and you have to accept it. That's one of the reasons why you want to get to the top league. You want the best technology and the best officials. And yes, you may not know how to use it properly, but it's not something that should become an issue, and it's not something that I think it's not going away anytime soon. Just have to live with it. And I mentioned earlier, Manchester United, I hate it. We've got a lot of penalties this season thanks to VAR. I say thanks to VAR, it's been thanks to our team getting fouled. End of the day, like I said, VAR's got 95% of the decisions correct this season. And if it wasn't going to be VAR, it was going to be the referee that gave them. And 21, baby. 21 penalties. This has been just a little conversation, just a little topic of VAR, and I've got a couple more things similar to this planned. I don't know what structure I'm going to be doing them in yet. This is just pretty much just an uncut conversation, and
so VAR, something that a lot of people have a very strong opinion on. My opinion, I wouldn't say is as strong, but I'd say I definitely have my opinions on it. I don't think VAR is bad. I just think things need to change. VAR has been useful for some decisions and has made a lot of correct decisions and has helped in a lot of matches. But I feel that VAR has not helped in certain matches, and I think that certain rules need to change. In a match that I watched not long ago, VAR called an offside almost a minute and a half after the offside had happened, and the ball was now shifting play anyway. But the ref hadn't spotted it and the linesman hadn't spotted it. There was just a query about it. I think that shouldn't have happened. I think that once they said carry on, and that once play was not paused, that it should have stayed that way. I don't think the game should have been stopped to go back and make sure that the correct decision had been made, because it wasn't. If nobody had noticed it at that point, then I think it was too far gone. But I think VAR has made some good decisions. I think there's been some penalties which VAR has managed to help, offsides, free kicks, everything. But I think the rules for VAR need to change. If a decision hasn't been made in a certain time period, the decision won't matter anyway. I think it doesn't matter if they want to view it anyway and just say after the match, right, well, this would have happened, then it's just another excuse managers and players can use. But either way, I think that there now needs to be a time period of, after a certain amount of time, it won't affect play. But VAR isn't perfect. We all know that. There have been sort of certain days where there's been 3 wrong decisions with VAR all at once, including in a Manchester United game sort of recently. So I think VAR is still working out its kinks. I think the team behind it are. I think the referees are as well. I think the VAR referees and the referees on the pitch need to get on the same page a bit more, because I feel that you are now putting a couple of different personalities in it. Because as before, you had the linesman, they could just call things out, whereas the ref was the real decision maker. So a ref would make decisions based on what he feels is correct, not what a team of people feels is correct. It's not a debate. This seems to be the problem. We're not going to have a football match where a penalty is called and they can all go off and watch it and then go sit around a table and debate about it. It's not a jury deciding if a man goes to jail. It's deciding whether a penalty goes on in a 90-minute football match. If there's 10 minutes worth of VAR decisions, that makes it 100 minutes football match, and 10 of that are VAR. We need to not give VAR as much power. If a referee calls something, that should be final. It shouldn't have to go through VAR unless it is being protested by either linesman. If it's not being protested by anybody, it should not have to go to VAR, because I think VAR is useful for it. But if it's not called for and isn't needed, they shouldn't use it anyway. They shouldn't just use it for the sake of using it. For an offside, if it's known as offside, you don't have to go for VAR because it could have been close. And then some VAR decisions, I think there needs to be a rule about how much of the person needs to be over the line, because I know there was one recently of a person's armpit being over the line. Are we serious? It's not their feet. If the ball isn't being kicked to their fucking armpit, it's head, chest, feet. If a hand is over the line, that shouldn't fucking count. But anyway, that's my opinion on VAR.
Hey guys, so Ben has been making a video on his opinions on VAR, and he's asked me to give my opinion for some reason, so yeah, I'm going to give my opinions. You might have seen me on the podcast that we made. We made a preview as well for the Arsenal-Liverpool match a few months ago, about a month ago now. So yeah, my opinions on VAR. It's been in full force for a couple of years now, I think 2 or 3 seasons. Obviously its purpose is to cut out the errors that are made by the referees, the obvious errors. You know, football is a sport where naturally a lot of errors are made just because the rules are quite complex. It's quite subjective, as opposed to maybe a game like tennis or something like that, where it's a lot more clear cut what the rules are and the umpire can make a much more easier decision. But in football it's a lot more subjective, so a lot more mistakes are made naturally. So the whole purpose of VAR has been to try and stamp out these errors. You know, I think VAR has been good at doing that in terms of the really like glaring obvious errors that we've seen in the past. Like for example, Frank Lampard's goal in the ghost goal in the 2010 World Cup against Germany, where it was clearly over the line, and I still don't know how to this day that they didn't realise it was over the line, but you know, that's how it goes. For a bit further back, the 2005, I think it was, semi-final with Liverpool and Chelsea, where Liverpool got given a goal which wasn't over the line clearly, and that's what actually got them to the final. So, you know, there's been lots of examples in the past of games where referees have made blatantly obvious errors, but you know, it's just they're all human at the end of the day. So the whole point of VAR has been to stop that, and I think it's been successful in that, so that's a positive. One negative of VAR has obviously been it takes a long time for the referees to make their decisions and the panel of judges. So one negative of that is that it quite often stops the flow of the game, where we're just constantly getting these stoppages where they're looking at something, they might be looking at a potential red card or a potential penalty, and you know, just stops the flow of the game. But I think we're gonna have to find a balance at the end of the day, because you can't have it both ways. You can't have VAR checking everything and not creating stoppages in the game. Like, there's going to be some stoppages in the game, and we're just going to have to adapt to that, simply. So yeah. Yeah, another thing is this whole, they're only looking for clear and obvious errors to overturn. I think this needs to change for next season. I think they should just literally, if they're going to use VAR, use it for everything, any error, and check it, because what's been a bit of a grey area is what they define as a clear and obvious error. Yeah, if you look back to the game I went to watch, Arsenal versus Crystal Palace, we had a goal disallowed. We went 3-2 up, we had a goal disallowed because apparently, I can't remember who it was, but someone did a foul in the build-up which wasn't even really a foul, but they gave that as a clear and obvious error, which, you know, it was very harsh to overturn that goal. And that's happened a lot of times this season, where we've had really dodgy calls for a clear and obvious error. So I think next season, instead of just doing this whole clear and obvious error, it's just going to, any mistake is overturned in my opinion, or scrap the whole thing, because you've got to do one or the other. We can't just stay in the middle and say like, oh well, if that's a clear and obvious error then we'll overturn it, but if it's not obvious then we won't. Well, I mean, if an error is an error at the end of the day, so I think in my opinion every single one's got to be overturned. So yeah guys, that's my opinion on VAR. Like I said, I think it's been good for stamping out those obvious errors. There's definitely room for improvement, which, you know, we know would happen. It's only 2 or 3 years old, and we're going to have to get used to it going forward. So yeah guys, I hope you enjoy my opinion. Sure, me and Ben have been making lots more videos in the future, so yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'm going to hand back to Ben now.
Leave a comment as to, is there anything else you want me to talk about, anything to do with what I think for next season, about transfers, about what happened last season, about anything really. Let me know, and it could be my next topic of conversation. Hope you guys have enjoyed. See you on the next one, and peace.